Every human being is constantly transmitting an invisible message through their dominant thoughts, emotions, and expectations. Whether they realize it or not, the state they occupy most often becomes the foundation upon which their experiences are built. This is why two people can face the same situation yet produce completely different outcomes. One sees opportunity where the other sees defeat. One expects growth while the other anticipates failure. The difference is not always in external circumstances, but in the inner state from which they perceive and respond to life. The outer world often mirrors the assumptions that have quietly become habitual within the mind. Your dominant inner state is not defined by the occasional positive thought you entertain for a few moments. It is determined by the beliefs and feelings you return to repeatedly throughout the day. If your mind constantly rehearses fear, limitation, and uncertainty, those patterns begin influencing your choices, reactions, and expectations. Without realizing it, you start behaving in ways that reinforce the very reality you wish to escape. On the other hand, when you consistently dwell in confidence, gratitude, abundance, and possibility, your perception changes. You begin recognizing opportunities that previously seemed invisible, and your actions naturally align with the future you desire to create. The subconscious mind accepts repetition as truth. It does not judge whether an idea is helpful or harmful. It simply receives what is impressed upon it most consistently. This is why persistent worry becomes a self-fulfilling cycle, and why sustained confidence can transform an ordinary life into an extraordinary one. Every repeated assumption becomes a seed planted in consciousness, and with time, those seeds express themselves through experiences that seem to arrive from the outside but were first cultivated within. The quality of your inner conversations quietly shapes the quality of your outer circumstances. Many people believe that changing their life requires changing the world around them first. They wait for better conditions before allowing themselves to feel secure, successful, or fulfilled. Yet this approach places their emotional state under the control of external events. A more empowering perspective is to recognize that the inner state can lead while circumstances follow. When you choose to embody peace before problems disappear, gratitude before abundance arrives, or confidence before visible success appears, you establish a new foundation from which different results naturally emerge. The change begins internally, long before it becomes visible externally. This principle can be observed in everyday life. Someone who expects rejection often communicates hesitation through body language, tone of voice, and behavior without intending to do so. Those subtle signals influence how others respond, reinforcing the original expectation. Conversely, someone who genuinely expects acceptance carries themselves differently, speaks with greater assurance, and approaches opportunities with openness. Their inner certainty influences their actions, and their actions create different experiences. What appears to be luck is often the visible expression of an invisible mental pattern repeated over time. Maintaining a constructive inner state does not require denying challenges or pretending difficulties do not exist. It means refusing to allow temporary circumstances to define your permanent identity. It means choosing thoughts that support growth rather than surrendering to those that strengthen limitation. Every moment presents an opportunity to return to the emotional atmosphere you wish to live from instead of the one created by fear or habit. Through repetition, that chosen state becomes familiar, and familiarity transforms into belief. When you truly understand that life continually responds to your dominant inner condition, you stop treating your thoughts and feelings as insignificant. You recognize them as creative forces shaping your perception, your decisions, and ultimately your destiny. Instead of reacting automatically to appearances, you begin consciously selecting the state you will occupy, regardless of external conditions. As this becomes your daily practice, the world gradually reflects the confidence, peace, abundance, and expectation you have cultivated within. The greatest transformation begins not when circumstances change, but when your inner state becomes so stable and empowering that your external reality has no choice but to align with it. One of the greatest sources of unnecessary suffering is the belief that every delay is a denial and every obstacle is proof that something has gone wrong. The human mind naturally seeks immediate answers, instant results, and visible progress. When these expectations are not met, doubt begins to grow, and people often abandon their dreams just before circumstances are about to change. Yet wisdom teaches that what appears to be a setback on the surface may actually be a hidden redirection leading towards something greater than originally imagined. Life often works in ways that cannot be fully understood until much later, when the pieces finally come together and reveal a pattern that was invisible at the beginning. Consider how many opportunities arrive disguised as disappointments. A missed chance may create space for a better one. A closed door may prevent years of regret. A difficult season may develop patience, resilience, and understanding that become essential for future success. At the moment these experiences occur, they rarely feel beneficial. The mind interprets them through the lens of immediate emotion rather than long-term purpose. But with time and reflection, many people discover that the events they once resisted became the turning points that transformed their entire lives. This principle encourages a different way of viewing challenges. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" a more empowering question becomes, "What is this experience preparing me for?" That single shift changes your relationship with difficulty. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances and begin recognizing yourself as a participant in a larger process of growth and expansion. Every experience, whether pleasant or uncomfortable, carries the potential to strengthen your character and refine your vision if you choose to approach it with awareness rather than fear. The mind has a tendency to judge unfinished situations as final outcomes. It looks at one chapter and assumes it is the entire story, yet reality is constantly unfolding. What feels like failure today may become the foundation of tomorrow's success. A person may lose one opportunity only to discover another that aligns far more closely with their true purpose. A relationship that ends may create room for a healthier and more fulfilling connection. A period of uncertainty may inspire creativity and courage that would never have emerged in comfort. The apparent delay is often serving a purpose that cannot yet be seen. Patience, therefore, is not passive waiting but active trust. It is the willingness to remain faithful to your inner vision even when external evidence has not yet appeared. During these moments, your assumptions become especially important. If you continually interpret delays as signs that nothing is working, you reinforce frustration and discouragement. But if you choose to believe that unseen forces are arranging circumstances in your favor, your emotional state remains steady, and you become more receptive to inspiration and opportunity. The quality of your expectation influences the quality of your experience. Nature itself demonstrates this principle with remarkable consistency. Seeds spend time beneath the surface before any visible growth appears. During that invisible stage, essential development is taking place. Roots are forming, strength is being established, and the foundation for future growth is quietly expanding. Judging the seed by what cannot yet be seen would lead to the mistaken conclusion that nothing is happening. Human dreams often unfold in the same way. Invisible preparation frequently precedes visible manifestation. When you embrace the understanding that every delay can carry hidden purpose, fear begins to lose its influence. You no longer measure progress only by external movement, but also by the transformation taking place within yourself. You develop greater patience, stronger faith, and a deeper confidence that life is unfolding with intelligence beyond your immediate perception. Instead of resisting every unexpected turn, you learn to cooperate with the process, trusting that even temporary detours may be guiding you toward a destination far richer than the one you originally imagined. In that trust, anxiety gives way to peace, and every apparent setback becomes another step along the path to fulfillment. Everything that exists in the physical world was once invisible. Every building began as an idea in someone's mind. Every invention started as a simple thought, and every achievement first lived as a possibility before it became a reality. This pattern is not accidental but fundamental to the creative process itself. The visible is always the result of something that first took shape within the invisible. When you understand this principle, you stop judging your progress only by what your eyes can see and begin appreciating the immense power of what is taking place within your consciousness. Most people become discouraged because they expect immediate physical evidence after planting a new belief. They decide to think positively for a few days, imagine their desired future, and then quickly look around for proof that everything is changing. When they do not see instant results, doubt returns, and they abandon the very process that was beginning to reshape their inner world. They forget that every natural process follows a period of unseen development. A seed planted beneath the soil spends time growing roots before it ever breaks through the surface. During that invisible stage, nothing appears to be happening, yet the most important work is already underway. Your mind functions in much the same way. Every thought that is accepted with emotion creates an impression within the deeper levels of consciousness. These impressions gradually influence your attitudes, expectations, choices, and reactions. Although the changes may not be immediately visible, they are quietly altering the direction of your life. One day you notice yourself responding differently to a challenge. Another day you recognize an opportunity you would have ignored in the past. Soon, people begin entering your life, unexpected circumstances unfold, and new possibilities appear. What seems like luck is often the visible expression of an invisible transformation that has been developing for weeks or even months. This understanding frees you from the exhausting habit of constantly measuring your progress through external conditions. If a farmer planted seeds and dug them up every morning to see whether they were growing, the harvest would never come. Growth requires trust. It requires patience with processes that cannot yet be seen. The same principle applies to the inner world. Every time you return to the feeling of your fulfilled desire, you strengthen the unseen foundation that will eventually support visible results. Every time you refuse to let temporary appearances define your expectations, you nourish the invisible creation that is gradually taking form. The imagination plays a remarkable role in this process because it allows you to experience internally what has not yet appeared externally. When you vividly accept an experience within your mind, your subconscious begins treating it as a familiar reality rather than a distant possibility. This shift changes your emotional state, and your emotional state influences your actions. You naturally begin making decisions that align with your new assumptions. You carry yourself differently, speak differently, and perceive the world differently. Others respond to this change, creating new interactions that reinforce your growing belief. The invisible begins expressing itself through countless visible channels. Many of life's greatest blessings arrive through pathways that could never have been predicted by logic alone. An unexpected conversation leads to a career opportunity. A disappointing ending creates space for a meaningful relationship. A delay reveals itself as perfect timing. Looking back, it often becomes clear that events were unfolding in an intelligent sequence long before you understood their purpose. The invisible was arranging what the visible had not yet revealed. When you truly grasp that the invisible always precedes the visible, fear begins to lose its influence over your decisions. You stop demanding immediate proof because you recognize that unseen causes are already in motion. Instead of living as someone desperately waiting for change, you begin living as someone who trusts the creative process unfolding within. That quiet certainty becomes your greatest strength, allowing you to remain faithful to your vision until the invisible finally steps into the visible world and confirms what you chose to believe long before anyone else could see it. One of the greatest challenges people face is the period between planting a dream in their mind and witnessing its appearance in the physical world. During this interval, uncertainty often begins to grow. Questions arise, doubts appear. The mind starts demanding visible proof that something is happening. Yet this waiting period is where trust becomes the bridge between desire and manifestation. Without trust, the imagination creates a beautiful vision only to destroy it with fear before it has the opportunity to develop. With trust, the invisible process continues undisturbed until it naturally expresses itself in experience. Every meaningful creation follows a sequence. A builder first imagines a structure before laying a single brick. An artist sees the finished masterpiece before touching the canvas. A musician hears the melody internally before it reaches the audience. The unseen always comes first. Life itself reflects this same pattern. Every future reality begins as an accepted inner experience before becoming an external fact. Understanding this principle allows you to remain calm even when your senses report no immediate change, because you recognize that the invisible foundation is already being established. Many people unknowingly interrupt this process by constantly questioning whether their desire will come true. Each day they plant a seed of confidence and then dig it up with worry to see if it has started growing. Nature does not reward impatience. Growth requires consistency. A seed hidden beneath the soil may appear inactive, yet beneath the surface it is developing roots strong enough to support future expansion. In the same way, your inner assumptions are quietly influencing your perceptions, your choices, your relationships, and countless circumstances beyond your conscious awareness. Much is happening even when nothing seems to be happening. Trust does not mean ignoring reality or refusing to take action. Instead, it means acting without the burden of fear. It means moving through daily life with the quiet expectation that events are unfolding in your favor, even if the complete picture has not yet revealed itself. This attitude changes the quality of every decision you make. Instead of reacting from desperation, you respond from confidence. Instead of forcing opportunities, you recognize and embrace them when they naturally appear. Instead of believing every obstacle is a final answer, you understand that some obstacles are temporary redirections leading towards something better. The mind naturally seeks certainty, but true certainty does not always come from external evidence. It comes from inner conviction. When you repeatedly return to the feeling that your desired future is already secured, your emotional state begins to stabilize. Fear gradually loses its influence because your attention is no longer fixed on what is absent, but on what has already been accepted within. This internal stability becomes a powerful force. It affects the way you speak, the way you carry yourself, the way you solve problems, and the opportunities you are willing to pursue. Others often describe such individuals as lucky or naturally confident, yet their strength originates from a deep trust cultivated long before success became visible. History is filled with examples of people who remained faithful to an inner vision despite external contradictions. They endured criticism, delays, and uncertainty because they believed that temporary appearances did not possess the final authority. Their persistence was sustained by trust rather than by constant proof. Eventually, circumstances aligned with the conviction they refused to abandon. Their stories remind us that the visible world often takes time to reflect an invisible decision. But once that reflection begins, it can transform an entire life. When you understand that trust is the bridge between desire and manifestation, you stop measuring progress solely by immediate results. You begin measuring it by the strength of your inner peace, the consistency of your belief, and the confidence with which you move through each day. You realize that your role is not to control every detail of the journey, but to remain loyal to the destination you have accepted in consciousness. As trust deepens, resistance fades, anxiety weakens, and life unfolds with a rhythm that often exceeds your expectations. The bridge you once searched for outside yourself has always existed within your own unwavering faith, carrying your vision from imagination into lived experience. Every person lives according to a collection of assumptions that have been accepted over time, whether consciously or unconsciously. These assumptions become invisible rules that shape expectations, influence decisions, and quietly direct the course of life. Most people believe that external events determine what they should think and feel, but in reality, the assumptions held within consciousness often determine how those external events unfold. What you repeatedly accept as true about yourself, your future, and the world becomes the foundation upon which your experiences are built. This process happens so naturally that many fail to recognize its influence, believing that life is merely a series of random circumstances instead of the reflection of deeply rooted beliefs. Consider two individuals facing the same opportunity. One assumes success is natural and that favorable outcomes are always available. The other assumes disappointment is inevitable and that failure is more likely than achievement. Although both encounter the same situation, their assumptions guide their perception, behavior, and emotional response. The first person notices possibilities, speaks with confidence, and takes action with expectation. The second hesitates, questions their ability, and focuses on potential obstacles. Eventually, their results seem to confirm what each believed from the beginning. The difference was not the opportunity itself, but the assumption carried into it. Assumptions possess extraordinary power because they influence the subconscious mind, which continually seeks consistency with accepted beliefs. When an idea is repeated often enough and embraced emotionally, it becomes familiar. Once familiar, the subconscious works tirelessly to express it through habits, choices, reactions, and circumstances. This is why changing your assumptions is one of the most effective ways to transform your future. Instead of trying to force external conditions to improve, you begin by establishing a new inner conviction that naturally produces different experiences over time. Many people unknowingly reinforce limiting assumptions every day. They repeat phrases such as, "things never work out for me," "success belongs to others," or "life is always difficult." Even when spoken casually, these statements strengthen an internal blueprint that shapes future expectations. The subconscious does not evaluate whether these ideas are beneficial or harmful, it simply accepts what is consistently impressed upon it. Because of this, becoming aware of your inner dialogue is one of the greatest acts of personal growth. Every thought repeated with feeling becomes a seed planted in consciousness, and every seed eventually bears fruit according to its nature. Replacing limiting assumptions requires persistence and intentional practice. Instead of allowing past experiences to define future expectations, you consciously choose assumptions that align with the life you wish to create. You begin to think from the perspective of abundance rather than scarcity, possibility rather than limitation, confidence rather than fear. At first, these new assumptions may feel unfamiliar because they contradict years of conditioning. However, repetition gradually transforms them into your new normal. As your inner beliefs change, your perception changes, your behavior changes, and your circumstances begin to reflect the new direction of your consciousness. One of the greatest misunderstandings is believing that assumptions are merely positive thoughts. They are much deeper than temporary optimism. An assumption is a settled conviction, a quiet certainty that no longer requires constant proof. When you truly assume that everything is working in your favor, you stop reacting with panic at every delay or challenge. You understand that temporary appearances cannot overturn an established inner belief. This calm confidence allows you to remain focused on your vision while life arranges unexpected pathways toward its fulfillment. Your destiny is not directed solely by the events you encounter, but by the meaning you consistently assign to those events through your assumptions. The beliefs you accept today become the experiences you recognize tomorrow. By choosing empowering assumptions and remaining faithful to them despite external appearances, you gradually reshape the direction of your life. You stop being driven by fear, doubt, and old conditioning, and begin moving with the quiet certainty that your inner world is creating a future aligned with your highest expectations. In that realization lies the forgotten law. Your assumptions are never passive thoughts. They are active forces that quietly and continuously direct your destiny.